why is it that the most intelligent people often have the hardest time taking action? If intelligence is such a sought after trait as people say it is, why is it that it sometimes feels like a burden? Maybe I'm talking about you. Maybe you were the kid who in school did amazing, went to awards night, got all the awards, science, math, social studies, literature, all of those things, yet you find yourself later in life having trouble succeeding, having trouble taking action, having trouble leveling up. Well, when you have intelligence as a child, you're praised for that. But no one ever teaches you the pitfalls of having intelligence. And having intelligence can be as much of a burden as it can be an asset. So, one of the things that I think gets in the way of people's intelligence is that it's like a double edged sword. On one hand, you have so much mental ability, so much capacity for thinking and imagining and considering all the different situations. But on the other hand, you can get lost in considering these situations for all of eternity. And then you're not taking any action at all. You're just getting lost in overthinking, getting lost in hesitation. I know that I've done this myself. I've had times where I wanted to start a business, and there were so many options of what I could start that I ended up not starting any of them, or I ended up starting many of them and only getting them to a very introductory stage because I had in my mind all the different possibilities, all the possibilities of what these businesses could be. I was literally seeing these in my head, thinking about 10 years down the line. What could this be? How could I help people with this? What's the biggest stage that I could push this to? But if I just get stuck in that thinking, I don't act. I didn't act enough on these businesses. So another thing that happens, I think, when you're intelligent is that you can become very self-critical and you can get absolutely stuck in a paralysis of perfectionism. I know that I've done this myself, where I'll see a project, I'll see a paper that I've written, I'll see a video that I produced, and I'll know that there are things that can be better, and I'll know how to make it better. But the thing is, if you just constantly try to make something better, then you never actually put it out. And you're just wasting so much time in the process of that. Think about two people who both start a business, they both create a product. And one person spends 3 years making this product, testing this product, trying to figure out all the things that could go wrong with this product, trying to really make it as good as they can. And they put the product out. And then they realize, after seeing people use the product, after they've spent 3 years perfecting the product, now people are starting to use it and they're seeing the flaws in it. So now they have to go back to the drawing board and perfect these things. After 3 years of perfecting it, right? But then there's someone else who releases the same product in a year and then gets that immediate feedback of seeing what people find wrong with it. And now they go and they fix that product again and they release it again. They release another version of it and they're already ahead of the person who spent 3 years just conceptualizing and just troubleshooting, just trying to make it what it is. So I think it's very easy, if you're intelligent, to just get lost in the process of things rather than the actual doing of things. And it's ironic because this desire to be perfect leads to achieving much less than the people who are okay with things just being mediocre. This kind of illusion of progress is definitely something that gets in the way. I think that very often when we have that perfectionism, we're trying to not only think about all the things that we see wrong, consider all the possibilities that are in our head, but we're also doing research to find our blind sides, to find other possibilities that we didn't think of. And then we just constantly get into this state of trying to test things, trying to learn about things, and we're not actually making progress. Like if you're constantly learning about fitness, but you're not actually going to the gym, you're not making any progress towards fitness. And that's such an obvious example, but when it comes to other things, I think when it comes to creative projects, when it comes to businesses, it's so easy for us to just tell ourselves that, oh, we're in the research phase. We're developing it. we're on the way, we're learning, we're figuring out the structure of the project, we're figuring out the backstory of the script that we're writing. And I get lost in that so often. And more so than ever, I'm trying not to, and to just do things, even to just do things badly is better than to just stay in that research phase for so long. And I think many people who are intelligent, the blind side is not even realizing that the intelligence is holding them back, which is like, it's very ironic because you're smart enough to do many, many different things, yet you're not making true progress on any of them because you're constantly stuck trying to make things perfect, trying to examine all the possibilities, whereas someone else will just do the thing badly, get credit, move on, constantly get better. And that's another thing that happens is when you do things and when you make mistakes, you learn from those mistakes so much faster than you do if you just stay in the research part, stay in the times when you're reading about things and you're considering all the options. You don't actually learn anything from that. Whereas if you make the mistakes, you learn so much quicker. So the people who are willing to make mistakes, the people who are willing to look foolish, get so much more done. They get so much further in life than the people who are intelligent and constantly just stuck in the paralysis phase. Think about someone who just goes and starts a business and they're very naive and they don't understand all the possible things that could go wrong. And if they did know all the things that could go wrong, they would never even do it to begin with. But because they were naive, because they didn't get stuck researching, they just started the business and then dealt with all the little problems, all the setbacks one at a time and figured it out. And they got through it and they get somewhere with it faster than someone who's smarter than them, but not taking action. Carl Jung has a great quote. It says, "You're not what you know, but what you do." And I think that's so true because the more that you do things, the more ingrained they become in you. The more you start building those neural pathways in your brain that gets you accustomed to doing these things and gets you in a rhythm of doing these things, right? Like if you're learning about bodybuilding, you're learning about fitness, but you're not actually going to the gym, then you're not getting into a routine with that. But if you go to the gym, in the beginning it might be slow because you're not exactly sure what muscle groups to work, you're not exactly sure what machines to use. But then after you go for a few weeks, after you go for a month, you start realizing, oh, I can use this machine and this machine and this, and then you get into a rhythm with it and you just get faster and it just becomes so much easier. So I think if you're intelligent, you have to really watch out for these things. You have to really think about also if you have this blind side where you're constantly stuck in not acting, you're stuck in paralysis, you're stuck in analyzing, you're stuck in dealing with all the different choices of things that you could do, places you could go, creative projects you could do. I think one of the things to consider is if there's any fear there. Because I think very often there can be some kind of fear in the thing that we want to do. There can be some fear in the failing. There can be some fear in not doing well at it. Because we have in our minds this image that we are maybe not necessarily perfect, but that we're intelligent, that we can consider all the options, that we could see things almost before they happen. It's like intelligence becomes almost like this clairvoyance where we expect ourselves to be able to foresee issues before they even happen, which no one can do, right? Yet somehow we put that on ourselves if we're intelligent. So I think really examine if there's any fear of failure there, if there's any fear of judgment, if there's any fear of losing the identity you have of intelligence, of perfection, of being the person who does the best, because the longer that you just hold on to that image, the more you're going to wait before you actually take any action and start learning things. And anything worth doing is going to be worth making mistakes at because you always learn more. I feel like I've always learned more from my mistakes than I ever have from my successes. Think about Thomas Edison's light bulb experiment. There's a famous quote, and you might have heard it, where he says that I didn't fail to make the light bulb 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb, something along those lines. But basically, it's such an optimistic way of looking at taking action and looking at failure and looking at how you get from A to B to C and actually get something out there, get the product out there, get the script out there, get the videos out there, rather than just staying in that paralysis stage. So what are some things that you can do if you are stuck in this thinking stage and you aren't taking enough action, you aren't actually doing things. So just start to ask yourself too, because it's going to be specific to whatever it is that you're doing. How can you start? And you got to think about what you respond to. Do you respond to deadlines? Do you respond to an accountability partner or bringing other people onto the project? Because sometimes if there's other people around and they don't have that same paralysis that you have, they will help pull you forward at times when you're starting to get stuck, and you can take these things that you're stuck on and talk to them about it, and they'll tell you, don't worry about that, or we'll do this, or let's do this first and not worry about that. And if you want to do something that you don't have a lot of experience in, and you know someone who has more experience in doing that thing, consult them, because that's another way. That's an intelligent thing to do, is to consult other intelligent people who've already been down the road that you want to be on, and they already see the real issues, and they could tell you up front, sure, that's a possibility, but it's very unlikely, so don't worry about it, and just start. Another thing you can do is just try to make decisions faster. If you have decisions that are hard to make and you can go in many different directions, just pick one. If you don't know what it is, if it's not a life or death thing, just pick one and see what happens. Because chances are with most things, you can go back, you can change them, you can readjust, you can adjust. Usually, making a decision is not the end-all, be-all of the thing, especially in creative projects. You can put something in a script and then you can do revisions, or, you make a video, you can go back, you can remake it later on if you really don't like it. It's usually not the end of the world if you make a decision that's not the best one, right? And also, I think just as a person who wants to do things in life, whether it's creative, business, whatever, like, you have to get used to putting work out there that you can look at and say, well, this thing isn't the best. This thing and this thing and this. Like, overall, as a whole, I'm happy I put it out there, but there's some things that can be better, because there's always things that can be better. And you're not going to know how to make something the absolute best until you've failed at it a million times, or the equivalent of what feels like a million times at least. So if you have intelligence, try not to waste it on inaction, because there's things in the world that you should be doing. There's people out there who need you. You have a voice that people want to hear. You have things that you want to share. You have places you want to go. And if you get stuck in the paralysis, it's just not going to be helpful to you. It's not going to be helpful to anyone. So I hope this has helped in some way. And if you'd like this video, I would love for you to please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment below. Let me know what it is that you've been stuck on, what it is that you want to take action on. Put it in the comments below. Just write it. Sometimes just writing something down in a journal, in a comment, anywhere, in a text message, just writing it down, putting it in writing makes it a little bit more possible to get done.